Fellow Mountaineers, you made it to another edition of the Trust the Beard podcast. I'm your host, The Beard. Today we're starting in the backfield. And if you look at the raw numbers and the historical blueprint of this conference, running back Cam Cook isn't just poised for a big year. I'm telling you right now, he's winning Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. And here's why. Now, to understand why I'm this high on Cam Cook, we have to look at what I call the Big 12 blueprint. Right? Winning Offensive Player of the Year in this league isn't just about being good, it's about being the centerpiece. We're going to look at the past winners, specifically the running backs, to see where Cam Cook stacks up. Now, I'm talking about names that are already legendary in this conference. Chuba Hubbard, Breece Hall, Ollie Gordon, who I think is still rushing on WVU right now. These guys weren't just contributors, they were the heartbeat of their teams. Now take a look at this data. I've lined up Cam Cook's 2025 production against these winners. If you look at LJ Martin at BYU, he's the returning Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year and probably the guy that most media members expect to repeat. But when you look at the 2025 data, Cam Cook's numbers were actually better than LJ Martin. Now I know the immediate rebuttal. Cook did that against G5 competition. I completely understand that. But efficiency is efficiency. And again, when I averaged the production of all these guys and compared it to what Cook did last season, he's almost identical. Right? He's already shown he can handle the volume and the pressure of being the guy. And honestly, Cook isn't doing this alone. To be the best, you have to beat the best. So let's look at the who's who of the Big 12 for 2026. Take a look at these names. This is a bit of my watch list for the season. You have established QBs like Noah Fafita at Arizona, Connor Wegman at Houston. Right, these guys have the volume and the name recognition to be front runners. And then there's playmakers like Bear Bachmeier, right, the freshman QB who made a splash at BYU last year. His running mate, LJ Martin, the reigning champ. Then there's a guy like Cameron Dickey, running back for Texas Tech, who's part of a very explosive offense. And then there's guys like Caleb Hawkins, Drew Mestemaker, Mekhi Hughes. These are guys who put up massive yards at other schools and are transferring into the Big 12, just like Cam Cook. And Hughes is a bit of an outlier simply because his big numbers came 2 years ago at Tulane. Right? Last year at Oregon, he only recorded 70 rushing yards. So there's certainly a question of whether he can reproduce. And same thing with that Oklahoma State backfield. Can their numbers translate from North Texas to the Big 12? Right. And this list kind of shows you the talent level that Cook is competing with, right? To win this award, he doesn't have to be good. He has to be better than everyone that we see on the screen right now. And you look at this list, and it really is the standard of talent in the Big 12. It also becomes a lot easier to see why Cam Cook has a statistical path to pull this off. But even with all this talent on the field, there's a historical trend that actually gives a running back a massive edge to win the award. So we'll look at the odds, and then we'll look at how the Big 12's identity has shifted and why a guy like Cam Cook has the edge to win this award. Over the last 7 years, running backs have taken home 5 of these Offensive Player of the Year awards, and we've really seen a fundamental shift back to a run-centric balance. Right, we're moving away from the pure air raid era that we used to define the league by. And this is actually giving running backs a 60% chance to win this award in 2026. Now, you take a look here at the other positions, right, especially wide receiver and quarterback, the path is incredibly narrow. Right, a wide receiver hasn't won this award since 2016, and that was Dede Westbrook for Oklahoma, who hauled in over 1,500 yards. And no returning wide receiver in the conference even cracked 1,000-yard mark for 2025. Look here at the bottom. Statistically, the best receiver to return to the Big 12 is Amari Thomas for Houston, who had 966 total yards. So if you look at what Dede Westbrook was able to do and other wide receivers in the past, right, these numbers don't even compare. Now we look at the quarterback landscape, right? This graphic shows the top signal callers from last season, and really the stability just isn't there. Only 3 QBs in the entire conference are returning to the same team and the same coach they played for in 2025. So you look at the top half, starting at Josh Hoover, going down to Brandon Sorsby. Right, these guys are all gone. Either their eligibility is up or they moved on to different teams. Then you have someone like Devin Dampierre in Utah and Avery Johnson at Kansas State, right? They have new coaches. So that just leaves Noah Fafita, Connor Wegman, and Bear Bachmeyer as your incumbents. And more importantly, also I'd like to point out that really none of these QBs have player of the year level production. And if you want to compare them to the last QB that won, Shedeur Sanders in 2024, look at the bottom of the graph there, right? Their numbers aren't even in the same zip code, right? While the QB room is kind of unsettled across the league, it's really the running back position has been the most stable asset in the Big 12. So the takeaway here is that history says the running back is the safest bet. And the current lack of a real superstar at QB and lack of a 1,000-yard receiver really only widens the gap for guys like Cam Cook. Now, he does have history. He does have the odds on his side, the position, but awards aren't won on paper. They are won on the field. So in pursuit of this Player of the Year award, Cam Cook will also be chasing a very specific milestone and one that separates the good backs from the legendary ones, a very exclusive club. To truly secure this award, Cook needs to accomplish something remarkably difficult. He needs back-to-back 1,200-plus yard seasons. We all know he reached 1,600 at Jacksonville State. So why 1,200? Well, I believe that's the mark he needs to reach to even be in the conversation for Player of the Year award. If he can't reach 1,200, I just don't think it's in the cards. But with that number in mind, since 2013, only 31 running backs across the country have pulled this off. So that averages out to just over 2 players per season. When you look at this list, you're looking at the gold standard of consistency, right? This list is littered with NFL superstars. It's not just about having one breakout year, it's about maintaining that elite production while being the focal point of every opposing defensive game plan. If you look at the bottom of the list, these guys in gold from the years 2023 and 2024, there's actually 6 running backs who accomplished this feat. And actually, no running backs accomplished it in 2024 to 2025. So now we're going to look at the competition that Cam Cook is going to have for 2026, right? This is a list of backs who actually have a shot at joining this elite club. And you see names that we're familiar with. One, LJ Martin, right? There's also Kawan Lacey, Ole Miss, Antoine Raymond at Rutgers. All right, they're all in the hunt for this. And really, aside from Cook, I believe these 3 are the front runners to accomplish this feat. Now, I understand this is a massive hurdle, but it is a great benchmark that turns great seasons into Offensive Player of the Year campaigns. But even with all the talent, even with all the stats, all the odds in his corner, there's still one final piece of the puzzle that must fall into place. And it's not about Cam Cook. It's about the structure and the culture that's built around him. We've looked at the history, the competition, and the 1,200-yard benchmark. But the final reason why Cam Cook wins Offensive Player of the Year isn't just about him. It's about the environment in Morgantown. For Cam Cook to win this award, the Mountaineers have to hit a very specific level of team success. So let's look at the blueprint. So this graphic really tells the entire story. You see the averages of the last 4 running backs to win this award. And when you look at those carries, yards, and touchdowns, the data shows that Cam Cook is already meeting or exceeding that pace. So statistically, he's already in the club. But you look at the other part of the screen, this is where the team comes in. And to match that output of the previous winners, West Virginia needs a 25% increase in total rushing production just to match the average. So we're talking about moving from just over 1,900 yards to well over 2,400. So that's about an extra 40 yards every Saturday. And then historically, Cam needs to be well over half that output himself. And so the question is, how do you find that 25%? Well, I think it starts with the upgrade at quarterback with Michael Hawkins Jr., right? A rebuilt O-line, you bring in Rick Trickett. That's how you bridge that gap. And I think with all that stuff together, the more stability under center, that 200 yard per game mark is very attainable. Now, if the Mountaineers can find that extra gear, the math says that Cam Cook isn't just a candidate, he's a front runner. Now, I understand that this may seem impossible, right? We're talking about a guy who just transferred in from the G5 level. He really walk in this conference and take the top individual honor. Well, that's exactly why this is a scalding hot take. But when you look at the stability of the staff, right, the Rick Trickett factor, the rebuilt O-line, the historical math of the Big 12, the path is right there in front of him. But I want to hear from you. Is that 25% jump in production realistic? Can Cam Cook join the elite club of back-to-back 1,200-yard seasons? Please drop a comment below, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. But always remember to trust the beard, and I will see you next week as I make another hot take on the WVU defense. So goodbye, God bless, go Ears.